We are going to continue using the quadratic formula to solve our quadratic equations, and we're going to look at example 2 in your booklet on page 7. So the first thing I want you to notice is that we are not in standard form. So I need to get in standard form before I can do anything, because I need standard form in order to pick my A, B, and C. Now, we've been dealing with these kind of separate, so the 2x plus 3 is what I want to move, and I'm going to show you how you can do it in the same step. To get rid of the 2x, remember we're trying to get 0, so I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. And to get rid of the plus 3, I'm going to subtract 3. I can do them at the same time rather than as two separate steps if I want to. Notice where I lined them up. The negative 2x, I lined up under the 5x. The 3, I lined up under the 2. So make sure that they're lined up under the like terms. And then combining like terms here. Signs are the same, so I add and keep the sign. Signs are the same, so I add and keep the sign. Now, just like in the last example, I'm going to pick my A, B, and C. So my A is 8, my B is negative 7, my C is negative 5. And I'm going to start with my discriminant. You actually don't have to start with your discriminant, but I do find that my students that do that tend to make fewer mistakes. So I suggest doing that. Replacing B with negative 7, replacing A with 8, replacing C with negative 5, and then doing my arithmetic. So negative 7 squared is a positive 49. Again, I'm going to think about my signs. I've got minus, and then I've got a negative, so that's going to become plus. And then I'm actually going to rearrange here. Commutative property lets me do that. I'm going to go 5 times 5. 4 times 5 is 20, times 8 is going to be 160. Adding these together, I get 209. So it's positive, so I do expect two solutions. It's not a perfect square, so it's not going to work the same as example 1. So now I'm going to go in and do my full quadratic equation. The quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And I'm going to plug in. So I'm going to get negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 209 all over 2 times a simplifying just a bit, negative 7 becomes plus a positive 7. 209 is not a perfect square. I should try and simplify it some, but we haven't actually talked about that yet, so I'm just going to leave it as the square root of 209 for right now. And then 2 times 8 is 16. Because 209 is not a perfect square, I actually can't take the square root and get an integer. I can take the square root using my calculator, and I'll show you that in just a second, but I cannot take the square root and get an integer. So I'm going to show you real quick, and then I'll show you how to approximate on a calculator. If I graph this, notice what Desmos tells me, negative 0.466 and 1.341. What that really means is that my answers are irrational and Desmos is rounding for me. So irrational is going to happen when you still have a square root. Okay? Now I'm going to show you how to do the approximation on a calculator. So this is the calculator that I've got linked for you in Canvas, and this is what your calculator will look like if you have the one that's inside the testing platform for the EOC. If you have a handheld one that's been approved, you can use that as well, but I'm going to go through and show you how to do this one. Now, I'm going to type it in exactly as we have it, but I have to use parentheses to keep my numerator together. So I'm going to go 7 plus the square root of 209. And I'm going to arrow myself out of there, close the parenthesis. and then I'm going to do divided by 16. Now you can see here how the display shows exactly that. Notice I'm doing the plus first and then I've got to do the minus. Okay? Now, pay attention to what you're told to round to. So let's suppose I was told to round to 2 decimal places. And I didn't mean to just close it out completely. If I was told to round to 2 decimal places, that would give me 1.34, because I look to the right, that gives me 1. So, and that tells me to stay the same. So I am going to do with the plus 1.34. And then I'm just going to come right back in here. I'm going to use my mouse. I'm going to arrow in, and I'm going to change that to minus. I don't even have to retype. I just click in it, use that, and it gives me the minus. Let's go again to 2 decimal places. So as I go to 2 decimal places here, that would be the 6, 4, 6, but I look to the right, that 6 tells me to round up. So negative 0.47 when I use my calculator. So if I'm asked to give my answer exactly, I leave it with the square root. If I'm asked to round, then I use my calculator to round. I want to give it in the form that it's asked for. If I were asked for 3 decimal places, I would give it to you like Decimos was, with 3 decimal places, rounding correctly, of course.